Well, for more on the World Cup and its economic impact, we're joined by Patrick Rishe, live from St. Louis, Missouri. He's the director of the Sports Business Program at Washington University in St. Louis, and he's also the founder and CEO of Sports Impact, a sports consulting firm. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you.
So we've already seen the celebrations erupting in countries making it through each leg of the tournament. So what would winning the Cup mean for the Final Four's economies?
That's really difficult to say because there's so much psychology that goes into this. First of all, on the plus side, you have so many people that are celebrating the beer sales, the concession sales, the bar sales. All of these things are going to go through the roof. You have people buying jerseys for the winning side. All of these things. In fact, in England's case, you have people buying jackets to mimic the coach, who's basically made that popular. But what we don't know is, what about the loss of productivity? You got a lot of people that are not watching or not watching what they're doing at work because they're watching soccer. And so on both sides of the fence, you have gains and subtractions to productivity. So it really just kind of depends on what's going on in that particular country. But I will say this, that even though you may lose some work productivity, the morale boost that can be had from the camaraderie of watching sports with your work colleagues, some people have suggested might be worth the trouble.
Now, as you mentioned productivity, it can be hard to focus on your work, especially when your team is in the World Cup and playing these matches during business hours. So talk about some of the downsides that can come with this sudden surge of interest, especially for these semi-finalist nations.
Well, the major downside is people just don't show up. Don't show up, more sick days. Mysteriously, more sick days. So that's why some of the research that I've seen is suggesting that managers, rather than work managers, rather than trying to scold their employees for ditching work, maybe you should actually have a communal watching at work. And that way you have higher morale, you have this kinship with your boss, if you will, that, hey, they're cool enough to let us watch our team play a match, so we're going to go the extra mile and work harder for that person before the match and after the match. So, and again, it's team building. You know, a big part of many businesses, certainly here in the States, and I would suspect around the world, is building a culture. And so if you have these group events like watching your country play in the World Cup semifinal or final, that could have positive productivity boost down the road.
Now, by some estimates, England's economy is expected to get at least a $3.5 billion boost if they make it to the final. So how does that social nature of football affect spending?
Well, again, you go back to the psychology of it, and it's a great question. I think when people are, you're not watching these matches in isolation at home. Most people want to have a social experience. And when you get caught up in the enthusiasm and the excitement of these matches, which they are certainly, this is something that only happens once every 4 years. And in England's case, they haven't been this deep in the tournament in many, many years. So I think that social consumption of sport helps encourage people, makes them more positive, and therefore they spend more money.
Now let's look at some of these winner prediction models. We've seen everything from cute animals to multinational banks really getting in on this action, and they've all come to different conclusions. So in this World Cup, who do you think is getting it right?
Well, I would say that whoever predicted Germany to win, I would not bank there because they got it really wrong this year. Germany flamed out pretty famously in the preliminary stages of the tournament. I know that one organization that you mentioned has actually picked France to win. France has looked pretty strong so far through the tournament, and right now I would say that they are a leading candidate. So I would go in that direction.
So after the final whistle is blown, just how long does this economic upswing last, and what are people spending their money on?
Well, again, you have, in economics, we talk about bandwagon effects. So all 4 of these countries are going to see bandwagon effects in terms of people buying merchandise of the national jerseys of England, Croatia, France, and Belgium. But the winning side, I think it's fair to say, are going to see those boost for a longer stretch of time. But quite frankly, I think all 4 countries, these countries do not see themselves this deep into this tournament on a regular basis. We aren't talking about Brazil and Germany where they have an expectation that they're going to get this far. So I think all 4 nations are going to see boost in merchandise sales, in particular of the national team's kit gear.
All right, thank you so much. Patrick Rishe there of the Sports Biz program at Washington University in St. Louis.